I find your lack of mana disturbing.
What's up, Magic players? It's Doyle, your host here on DoylePrimeMtG, where I bring you the latest and greatest in Magic content that I can, while still trying to have a life. This week, I'd like to share with you a special project of mine. A while back, I found some alternate art proxies of a few cards that featured Star Wars skins, and I got inspired. So with the help of the internet, social media groups, and photo editing software, I present to you my full Proxy, Oops, All Star Wars EDH deck.
Forests, islands, mountains, plains, and swamps. The multiverse is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. There is a tingling in the spine, a faint sensation, as if a distant memory of walking from plane to plane. Our lives have been forever changed, as if by magic. Embark with me on this journey to eternity. Experience the true power of mind over matter as we ignite your spark and traverse into the magic multiverse.
Hello friends, and welcome to the Star Wars universe, as I discuss how I decided to spoof on all the universes beyond cards. If Wizards can make their own other IP cards, why can't I? So I asked my playgroup if they'd be willing to play against it, and voila, this blessed monstrosity was born. I have 3 commanders that can lead this deck: Han Solo, Leia Organa, and C-3PO. Unfortunately, my parallel for C-3PO was recently banned, Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, though Han and Leia still reign. For Han Solo, I chose Kenrith, the Returned King, because these two are both cheeky politicians at their core. They make deals and utilize allies to turn the tides of war. For Leia Organa, I chose the premier recruiter, Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Each of these wise women command immense respect as they inspire the troops that they gather. Of course, Han needs his buddy, so Chewie gets a special placement here as Zerta the Dawnwaker, making all of Han's abilities cost up to 2 less to activate. Back to the deck, we will open up with some artifacts and experiences that will help us to become stronger with the Force. Sol Ring is one of the cards that helped inspire this deck when I found this awesome Kyber Crystal version. I had to have it. Since we were making proxies, I thought it would be fun to include a Mana Crypt, which could only be represented here by the volatile yet powerful Death Star Energy Core. Arcane Signet is a must for 5 colors, and the only honor I could bestow was the Mandalore Signet. The Jedi would be honored to carry the Chromatic Lantern, reskinned as a Jedi Holocron. The Sith draw energy from hatred for their enemies, thus Felwar Stone will allow us to crush them with their own colors, using the knowledge of the Sith Holocron. One of the artifacts that didn't quite make the final cut of the deck, Thran Dynamo, is well furnished as a power generator from Hoth Station. Of course, nothing gives us an efficient advantage like some utility droids. I decided to give all personal droids a shout out in the skin for Solemn Simulacrum. Since gaining mana is also kind of akin to widening the knowledge of the Force, Farseek will represent Luke heeding the call of a Grand Master. Nature's Lore will represent a lesson in persistence, as Qui-Gon reaches through the Force from the beyond to teach his apprentice even more about the ways of the Force. Rampant Growth can represent the personal growth of a rogue Mandalorian and a child of a rare species, as they strengthen their bond at a Sorgan colony. Additionally, Spoils of Victory fit in here so well that I actually made 2 proxies of this card based on which side I feel like walking that day, be it a Jedi victory or an Imperial victory. And with every victory comes a medallion ceremony, where treasures are given to those with merit, represented here by Smothering Tithe. I have also decided to include Fabro Elder, as there is quite a similar looking entity in Star Wars The Clone Wars, the Bendu. This entity is the middle, the neutral part of the Force, and it's charged with assisting in the balancing of it. This creature can wield an enormous amount of power with the Force, utilizing both sides in harmony, and thus Fabro Elder certainly steps up to the plate by producing up to 5 mana one of each color of permanents that we control. For card draw, we will use some flavorful yet powerful draw spells to ensure our mishmash of legendaries can at least keep up with the card velocity of our opponents. Sylvan Library is a great parallel to make for the Jedi Archives, and it just ensures awesome card velocity for keeping up with other normal commander strategies. Rhystic Study draws an essence of meditation, and the Jedi were masters of the meditating arts, honing skills with the Force and gaining knowledge in the process. The Weatherlight will serve us to well represent one of the greatest smuggling ships this galaxy has ever known, the Millennium Falcon. Basically a space Winnebago, this bucket of bolts will beat the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. So they say, smuggling a historic card from the top 5 of our library into our hand. Coastal piracy is easily embodied by the Tusken raiding parties of Tatooine. These raiding parties are brutal and will do whatever it takes to gain value out of slaughter. Also found on Tatooine, Jabba the Hutt reigns as the head of his sector of the Hutt cartel. Gaining value through fear, Jabba, cartel kingpin, sits back and relaxes as the value is gained for him. Hence, Aloro Ageless Ascetic will be the foundation for Jabba as he gains value in a similar way. The Jedi are a much more peaceful group than the Raiders or the Hutts, gaining their tactical advantage not from brutality, but from reconnaissance. That is why reconnaissance mission would fit so nicely as an additional way of drawing through combat. Skullclamp is an interesting addition here since we do not have a majority of small creatures or token producers, but it does allow us to gain some value when our best creature gets removed. A fitting alternate art that I found was for Vader's helmet. This headpiece is also shrouded in tragedy, dooming the wearer to be destroyed or sacrificed for another's gain. Maybe this was inspired by the selflessness of Padme Amidala, giving Vader a glint of light in his darkest hour, but due to Padme giving her life to bring her children into the galaxy and ensuring that the Force will indeed be balanced, I had to choose Selvala Explorer Returned, as the parlay ability truly embodies both her political, social, and familial personalities, ensuring that any gain for herself was also a shared gain. Mangara the Diplomat serves a role as card advantage, but much more specifically to sit on a seat at the Jedi Council. He denies Anakin the rank of Master, rightfully, but that's a topic for another video. Oh wait, this wasn't Mangara, but his representation from the Star Wars universe, as Mace Windu, Jedi Enforcer. Of course, Mace is an excellent diplomat as well, having served as the leader of the Jedi Council, as well as playing a prominent role in the Republic Senate. This next one is a stretch mechanically, but the flavor of Toski Bearer of Secrets being a squirrel, I could not resist giving it a skin that was just as cute and cuddly. Wicket, Inquisitive Scout. The guidance given to Leia through Wicket causes her to be able to navigate safely to victory and peace on Endor. Ulran Frostfang will yet again make an appearance, though this time it will take the form of a, at the time nameless, Mandalorian mercenary, gaining us a tactical advantage in combat to gain new resources. Of course, the very same rogue Mandalorian will eventually run into a major player of Mandalorian politics, Bo-Katan, heir to Mandalore. Since Din Djarin gains a wealth of knowledge and wisdom from Bo-Katan while also getting some gear upgrades, I thought Joyra Weatherlight Captain would fit the flavor here quite well. There is one Force wielder known to be one of the eldest in the Star Wars franchise. Master Yoda has seen many a Jedi and many a Sith come and go with the ages. I thought there would be no more fitting a parallel for Yoda than to skin Reki, the History of Kamigawa. Gaining us much value he will, with our many legendary creatures we will cast. 2 Sith Lords will also gain us some card advantage. Darth Maul, skinned over Prosper Tomebound, will generate value through impulse, while generating treasures in the process. This is reminiscent of how Maul had acquired the Darksaber in order to rule Mandalore and utilize the Death Watch to his advantage. Not to mention, Prosper looks pretty similar to Darth Maul. Darth Revan is a Legends favorite, bringing in value through sacrifice as a skin of Greven Predator Captain. Not only are the names pretty similar, but the brutality with which Greven gains us value is exactly the type that I would expect to see in the wake of Darth Revan. This section will end as the Skywalker saga does, with a Mary Sue. For Rey Palpatine, I chose to use Gretchen Titchwillow, as the card is about as interesting as Rey. I don't dislike her character, more so the writing around it, which is why I'm poking fun here. And hopefully with some much better writers and directors, as they have given us in The Mandalorian, Rogue One, and Solo. But I digress. Next up, we will look into the control section, where we will use the Force to protect our strategy and to thwart our enemy's plans. An old buddy of our General Han, we couldn't have a proper experience without Lando Calrissian at our side. Since he is such a prolific gambler and a cheat, who better than Gwafa Hazid, Profiteer, to represent this chaotic comrade? If it weren't for Lando, the ultimate rescue of Han would not have been possible. Han would have been encased in carbonite possibly the rest of eternity, and we can pay homage to this through Darksteel mutation. Of course, all Force wielders need some training, and where best to do so but on some training grounds. This will give us the perfect terrain for Yoda and Luke to get down and dirty with some Jedi training. This is particularly useful with Han at our helm. Even though he's not a Force user, he does generally get significantly more crafty when he has someone like Luke on his side. Luke is a superior combatant, wielding some of the sharpest saber skills and Force abilities to be seen on the big screen. I found that Miri Weatherlight Duelist is quite a good fit. With Luke's cat-like reflexes and the affinity for the light side, isolating opponents in combat to create tactical advantage before mowing them down. Miri helps to exemplify this through isolating our opponents, both their blocking capability as well as their ability to counterattack. Luke's training would never have gotten completed if it were not for Master Yoda's use of Luke's X-Wing as a display of potential. The X-Wing is one of the most efficient fighter jets in the galaxy, and thus can be represented by Sky Sovereign console flagship. The repeated damage will help keep all those TIE fighters at bay. Jedis completing their basic training get to build a lightsaber. Luke's first lightsaber was his father's. Anakin's legacy lightsaber is dedicated to his path towards the light side. The Sword of Truth and Justice is quite a parallel here, considering Anakin's determination to take down the Sith Lord prior to his temptations. Luke went on to make his own saber as he became more powerful with the Force. Sword of Hearth and Home likens to Luke's ability to dive deeper within the Force to achieve great power. And of course, Anakin also went on to create a new saber. Again, post-metamorphosis. Vader's saber is quick, decisive, and efficient. The Sword of Fire and Ice will represent the duality of Vader's determination and shame. Another famous saber is that of Luke's master, Yoda. Yoda's saber will be represented by the Sword of Feast and Famine, due to Yoda's immense connection to the light side of the Force, enabling him to achieve great tasks, while also not forgetting his detailed understanding of the dark side, as knowledge of the enemy allows one to better defeat them. This is also exemplified in one of Luke's most prominent moments in canon films so far, during his appearance on an Imperial craft, intent to intervene heroically to find and protect Grogu, using the dark side power Force Choke to crush droids in his path. Heroic intervention will honor this moment well as the intervention of Skywalker. I'm sure that Din Djarin appreciated this, as he was always the one having to show up and save the kid himself. Let's honor Din as well here for his service to the child through Crib Swap, since he is always swooping in to kill whomever took this little bundle of joy. And of course, we must include this bundle of joy as a changeling token. Obi-Wan Kenobi was quite a master, always dropping in at precisely the right moment to say, "Hello there." I thought that his sacrifice of himself to Lord Vader should be honored, and so Brago, King Eternal, will embody our handsome King Ewan McGregor, even beyond the grave, as Obi-Wan, Spirit of the Force. Of course, Obi-Wan had to learn this ability to persist through the Force from somewhere. His master, Qui-Gon Jinn, taught him this lesson. and in so doing he has earned his skin of Watuo, Honored Physician, which can tap to put a creature from our grave on top of our library, allowing said creature to continue to show through the Force. Amongst these Jedi stood Luke's father, Anakin. Anakin was a troubled child, growing up in slavery. His angst and emotion eventually led him down a very dark path. Peace is a lie. Through passion I gain strength. This part of the Sith code is embodied by Anakin, and that's why we skin him over Rankle, Master of Pranks, due to the advantages gained through sacrifice, attrition, and pain. Of course, once the darkness has consumed him, he abandons his identity of Anakin and becomes a new entity entirely, Darth Vader, represented here by Soren Markov. I could not think of a better parallel to Vader's Force choke than Soren Markov's life-setting ability. Of course, Vader also had a Padawan, when he was but a spunky young Anakin Skywalker. That Padawan's name is Ahsoka Tano of the Togruta. She learns from Anakin in such a way that she becomes also immensely powerful with the Force, and eventually learns to phase shift through one of the lesser practiced lightsaber forms. Due to her relation to Anakin and the subtle yet powerful nature by which she fights, I have made her into a skin of Elspeth, Sun's Champion. The wipe ability is reminiscent of her quick removal of threats, while the soldier generation harkens to her affinity for the clone troopers of old. Of course, being the Padawan of one of the greatest generals in the Clone Wars, her emblem is also quite fitting. On her journey in the Clone Wars, Ahsoka runs into Embo the Bounty Hunter, an extremely cunning bounty hunter, who has even faced off against Anakin Skywalker and lived to tell the tale. This guy will be represented by Ulvenwald Tracker for his efficiency and ability to pit targets against one another. Another assassin encountered in the same era is Asajj Ventress, and who else could embody her but Massacre Girl? Upon entering play, she will likely assassinate the entire board. But what good is all of this death without a bit of music? The main performing act for tonight will be the Cantina Band, as performed by Yasan the Wanderer Bard. A bit more manipulative than powerful, Felden of the Third Path can be represented by General Tarkin of the Imperial Army, as he resurfaces time and time again with seemingly endless ranks of armed forces. Every Imperial army needs an Emperor, and Sheev Palpatine is the most manipulative character in the series. Having turned the Chosen One to the dark side, there is only one card that could represent his tyrannical terror, Empress Galena, allowing us to gain control of our opponent's legendary permanents. This is the Emperor who ordered the destruction of Alderaan, as characterized here through the Star of Extinction, destroying a land while dealing massive damage to all creatures. Just make sure that you can fire before the Death Star gets vindicated. This card needs no extra name, as it is directly an allegory to the destruction of the dreaded Death Star. Sheev is also the Emperor who uttered those famous words, "Execute Order 66," which we will characterize here through In Garrick's Wake, destroying all creatures that we do not control, and ensuring that our power is absolute. If that does not close out the game well enough for us, we have a few more tricks up our sleeve. Palpatine's army was forged on Kamino, over 200,000 delivered upon initial receipt, with 1 million more on the way. This had to be Assemble the Legion, as it will continue to create hasty clone soldier tokens with increasing numbers at each of our upkeeps. Our clone army would not be nearly as effective without one of the major commanding officers, Commander Rex. He will be portrayed here by Audric Lunarch Marshall, since he most effectively ensures all of his men have the proper positioning to maximize their potential, spreading keywords across the board. Since he's also a clone, Hunter of Squadron 99 of the Clone Forces can also be played by Audric, Master Tactician. Since Hunter is such a seasoned strategist, I thought this most fitting of a representation. We can always dole out some serious damage by releasing a ferocious beast. The Rancor, for example, could be represented by Colonian Hydra, a beast that gets more and more fearsome as it continues to rage. We could even release a Crate Dragon, if we're able to tame one, The devastating power of this dragon could only be characterized by a Balefire dragon. Yes, I know Crate Dragons can't fly and Balefire Dragon has flying, but since Crate Dragons can tunnel underground, I felt that was a fair amount of evasion to make the flying not a complete flavor fail. One of the young Jedi to emerge out of the post-Order 66 era is Ezra Bridger. With his affinity for animals, I sought it fit to use Girid, Conclave Exile, to represent him. This will repeatedly summon more and more local wildlife to aid through Populate. One of the largest crawling fortresses resides on Tatooine, with the Jawas. This sandcrawler has an unbelievable amount of Jawas inside of it, and they come out storming in the form of sand tokens, since this is skinned over the Dune Brood Nephilim. B1 battle droids were used so frequently by the separatist armies of the Republic era, and as such should be represented. Mere Battlesphere will serve to represent a battle droid transport, while the tokens service as droids. Even more devastating are the Star Destroyers of the Imperial Army, represented here by a Sharding Sphinx. I know it's not a vehicle, but hear me out. Swarms of TIE Fighter Thopter tokens can be produced at an exponential rate. Of course, this wasn't the most devastating of Imperial ships. The Executor-class Star Dreadnought sure makes a strong case for this title. Represented by the Parhelion II, this ship will repeatedly launch attacking TIE bombers, which can be represented as 4/4 Flying Angel tokens. Note, this title of most devastating of ships can be given to only one structure, the Death Star. I probably don't have to explain why I chose Aetherflux Reservoir for this slot, since you can dome somebody for 50 damage to the face. All the lands in this deck are each themed after a planet from the Star Wars galaxy, with the notable exceptions of Rogue's Passage, skinned as Astromech Access, where R2-D2 always seems to find another path to unlock, and Maze of Ith, skinned as the Sarlacc Pit. It took Boba Fett quite a long time to crawl out of that mess. One more utility land that we will use is Castle Lochthwain. We will use a skin here of the Throne of Exegol, since the castle resembles one of the Star Destroyers that are created and stored on Exegol. The rest of our lands will fix our colors. Of course, since these are proxies, I went with the Alpha Duels and the Triomes because it's 5 colors, it's casual as heck, and these are proxies, so every card costs me the same amount of money. Of course, when people aren't okay with that, I typically just tend to treat the Alpha Duels as shocklands, and people don't seem to mind. Command Tower is at the helm of every commander deck, so it will get the honor of the capital city planet of Coruscant. Exotic Orchard is a bountiful resource that is a key player in any game that it shows up, so we will have it represent Kashyyyk, the home planet of one of the best co-pilots in the galaxy. Cascading Cataracts is a beautiful paradise, which could only be represented by none other than the peaceful Naboo. Badlands produces black or red mana from a blasted, scarred, and treacherous land, so we will let it represent the fiery place of Mustafar, where Anakin learns an important lesson about the high ground. Bayou produces black or green mana from an overgrown swamp, so we will let it represent the jungle planet of Rhodia, home planet to Greedo. Indatha Triome produces white, black, or green mana, so we will let it represent Corellia, the shipyard planet home to many people who wish to explore the galaxy, including one Han Solo. Ketria Triome produces red, blue, or green mana from a lush rainforest, the exotic jungled planet home to a more primitive type of humans. Plateau produces red or white mana from a rocky landscape, so we will let it represent Geonosis, the rocky planet less than a parsec from Tatooine, where Jango Fett meets his untimely demise. Raugran Triome produces red, blue, or white mana from a rocky coast, so we will let it represent Jeddah, a small desert moon frosted by a permanent winter, and one of the first civilizations to study the nature of the Force. Savannah produces green or white mana from an open grassy field, so we will let it represent Dantooine, an outer rim world filled with lush forests and green landscapes. Scrubland produces black or white mana from a peat swamp, so we will let it represent Bogano, a largely unexplored world due to the fact that it's missing from most modern maps, with a surface dominated by vast mesas and sprawling wetlands. Taiga produces red or green mana from mountainous forests, so we will let it represent Alderaan. A peaceful world, Alderaan was bereft of weaponry in an era of galactic strife. It was not without spirit, however, and the Empire knew it had to be a haven of rebel activity. So Grand Moff Tarkin targeted the beautiful world for reprisal as soon as the Death Star was operational. The World Tree will let each of our lands tap for any color of mana, as long as we control 6 or more lands. So we will let this represent the Temple of the Mortis Gods. Behind this ancient painting of the Mortis Gods on Lethal is a world between worlds, a collection of pathways and doors between time and space. Tropical Island produces green or blue mana from a beautiful sandy beach, so we will let it represent Scarif, a planet that would be a beautiful tropical paradise if not for the presence of a major Imperial military installation. Tundra produces white or blue mana from a frigid, patchy flatland, so we will let it represent Hoth, the frozen planet surrounded by numerous moons and home to deadly creatures like the Wampa. Underground Sea produces black or blue mana from the depths of the ocean, so we will let it represent Kamino, a planet of endless oceans and storms, and site of the creation of the clone army. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, lets our land produce black mana, so we will let it represent the Empire's graveyard, the wreckage of the second Death Star. Volcanic Island produces blue or red mana from a volcanic island, so we will let it represent Nur, a watery moon located in the Mustafar system. Zagoth Triome produces blue, black, or green mana from a forested wetland, so we will let it represent Felucia, a world teeming with fungal lifeforms and immense primitive plants. This all leaves us room for 3 forests, which will be represented by the forest moon of Endor, home to the Ewoks, 2 islands, which will be represented by Ahch-To, the island world where the Jedi Order was founded, 2 plains, which will be represented by the sandy scapes of Tatooine, 1 mountain, represented by Dathomir, home to the Night Sisters and Night Brothers, the species of Darth Maul and Savage Opress, and finally 1 swamp, represented by none other than Dagobah, the swamp planet where Yoda retreats in order to train Luke before he becomes one with the Force. The alternate art proxies seen here were made possible by the assistance of friends and other fans in the community, as well as the mythicblackcore.com and TCG Printing. This video is not sponsored, but I wanted to send a shout out since I had such a great experience building this deck. That about wraps it up for this deck tech. I hope you enjoyed the video. You'll find the link to the full deck list on arcadeck.com in the description, complete with a Maybeboard. Let me know in the comments below if you would take this deck in a different direction, or if there are any key includes that I missed. Cheers, and happy casting.
May the Force be with you.
If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button and also share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like these or hear me ramble about how to navigate this Magic multiverse, go ahead and click that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest from me, Doyle Prime, and the happenings throughout Magic the Gathering. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you all next video.